Do you remember those forgotten Thanksgiving side dishes Grandma used to make? The ones you only see in old cookbooks now, tucked between fading pages. They weren't flashy, but they turned every holiday meal into something memorable, comforting, and full of love. Today, we're bringing back 30 of these classic recipes that deserve a spot on our tables again. Scalloped oysters. There was a time when no Thanksgiving table was complete without a bubbling dish of scalloped oysters, creamy, buttery, and quietly decadent beneath their golden crust. While turkey took center stage, this old-fashioned seafood casserole played a luxurious supporting role, especially in coastal and Midwestern homes where oysters were once a winter staple. Long before modern stuffing mixes and instant casseroles, scalloped oysters represented the height of simple elegance, a dish that married humble pantry staples with a taste of the sea. At its heart, the recipe was disarmingly straightforward. Layers of fresh or canned oysters tucked between buttery cracker crumbs, moistened with cream or milk, and seasoned with salt, pepper, and just a whisper of nutmeg. Some cooks added a splash of oyster liquor for depth, others a few drops of Worcestershire or lemon juice to brighten the richness. It went into the oven pale and ordinary but emerged bubbling, fragrant, and flecked with golden edges, a dish that seemed to say, "The holidays have truly begun." Scalloped oysters were especially beloved by grandmothers who learned to cook during the early 1900s, when oyster carts and seafood tins were easy finds at local markets. By the mid-century, as refrigeration improved and convenience foods took over, the dish began to fade from family menus. Oysters grew pricier, and Thanksgiving menus turned toward casseroles made with cream of whatever soup instead of fresh cream. The once common oyster dressing, a close cousin, hung on a bit longer, but the pure, layered, scalloped oysters quietly slipped into memory. Today, reviving scalloped oysters feels like rediscovering a lost culinary heirloom. It's rich, nostalgic, and surprisingly easy to make. Each bite is creamy yet briny, the butter and crumbs forming a delicate crust that gives way to tender oysters beneath. It's not flashy or photogenic, but it carries the unmistakable flavor of tradition, a dish that bridges the elegance of old holiday feasts with the warmth of home. Maybe it's time we brought it back, set it beside the turkey once more, and let that first spoonful remind us how extraordinary, simple, honest food can be. Molded cranberry salad. Before gelatin salads became the punchline of retro dinner jokes, they were the pride of the holiday table, and none more so than the molded cranberry salad. Shimmering like a ruby centerpiece, this dish was a fixture of Thanksgiving feasts from the 1940s through the 1970s. Every grandmother had her version, some studded with crushed pineapple, others with chopped celery or walnuts, and a few that dared to sneak in a swirl of cream cheese or sour cream for that velvety finish. No matter the variation, molded cranberry salad added color, texture, and a touch of mid-century glamour to the spread. It began as a creative twist on traditional cranberry sauce. Instead of serving it loose and spoonable, home cooks dissolved packets of flavored gelatin, usually cherry or raspberry, with hot water and folded it in cooked cranberries or canned sauce. The mixture was then poured into decorative molds, often ring-shaped or fluted, and chilled until firm. When unmolded onto a glass platter and garnished with lettuce leaves or orange slices, it was pure spectacle. A dessert pretending to be a side dish, or perhaps a side dish masquerading as dessert. For many families, the molded cranberry salad offered a welcome contrast to the heavy, savory dishes on the table. The tang of the cranberries cut through the richness of turkey and stuffing, while the wobbly texture delighted children who watched it jiggle with every spoonful. In a time when presentation mattered as much as flavor, it was the definition of fancy. The kind of dish you made to impress guests and show off that new Tupperware mold or Pyrex bowl. By the 1980s, though, gelatin salads began to lose their luster. Fashions changed, palates shifted, and what once symbolized hospitality came to seem hopelessly old-fashioned. Yet there's a charm in their resilience. The molded cranberry salad remains a snapshot of mid-century optimism. Bright, cheerful, unapologetically sweet. Bring it back to the Thanksgiving table, and it's sure to spark memories, smiles, and maybe even a little laughter. After all, what's more festive than a holiday dish that still knows how to sparkle and jiggle? Baked sweet potato puff. Before sweet potato casseroles were blanketed in marshmallows, there was the baked sweet potato puff, a lighter, airier version of the classic holiday side that relied on real flavor and a touch of kitchen magic. This dish turned a humble root vegetable into something almost soufflé-like, proving that Grandma knew how to elevate simple ingredients long before celebrity chefs made it fashionable. The sweet potato puff was soft and golden, with a delicate crust on top and a warm, custardy center that seemed to melt on the tongue. It wasn't just food, it was comfort in its most elegant form. The process was deceptively simple. Mashed sweet potatoes were whipped with eggs, milk, sugar, and butter until light and fluffy, often with a hint of nutmeg or orange zest to brighten the flavor. Some cooks folded in a spoonful of flour or baking powder for extra lift. Others topped it with buttered breadcrumbs or crushed cornflakes for a satisfying crunch. The mixture went into a buttered casserole dish and baked until puffed and fragrant, filling the kitchen with the kind of aroma that made you linger by the oven door. Unlike today's syrupy versions, the baked sweet potato puff struck a perfect balance between sweet and savory. It complemented roasted meats beautifully, but it could also hold its own as a dessert if served with a drizzle of maple syrup or a dollop of whipped cream. For families in the mid-20th century, it was a staple at Thanksgiving and Sunday dinners alike, a way to turn inexpensive produce into something that felt special. Over time, as processed ingredients and shortcut recipes became popular, the airy elegance of the sweet potato puff faded from memory. But perhaps it deserves another moment in the spotlight. Bring it back, and you'll rediscover why our grandmothers made it year after year. It's simple, nourishing, and impossibly comforting. Each spoonful tastes like gratitude itself. Warm, humble, and quietly extraordinary. Green bean casserole with fried onions. Few dishes define mid-century Thanksgiving quite like the green bean casserole crowned with a halo of crispy fried onions. It's a recipe that began not in a grandmother's kitchen, but in a test kitchen, dreamed up in 1955 by Dorcas Riley of the Campbell Soup Company. Yet somehow, it made its way into nearly every family recipe box in America. What started as a corporate creation became a sentimental staple, the dish that linked generations across holiday tables with its familiar, creamy texture and comforting crunch. At its core, the green bean casserole was pure practicality. It called for just 5 ingredients: canned green beans, cream of mushroom soup, milk, soy sauce, and fried onions. The magic happened in the oven, where the sauce thickened into a silky coat and the onions crisped into golden perfection. It was quick, affordable, and, most importantly, reliable. For busy home cooks juggling turkey, stuffing, and pies, it was the dependable side dish that never failed to impress. But what made it special wasn't just its convenience, it was its universality. The green bean casserole fit in everywhere: church potlucks, family reunions, Sunday suppers. It was a democratic dish, equally at home beside fine china or on a paper plate. Grandmothers made it faithfully, often tweaking it to their liking, adding fresh mushrooms, switching to frozen beans, or tossing in a handful of cheddar cheese. Each version was slightly different, yet unmistakably the same. Over time, food trends tried to push it aside in favor of fresher, fancier vegetable sides. But nostalgia has a way of fighting back. That first spoonful, the creamy beans, the salt-kissed crunch of onions, still feels like a memory you can taste. It's not haute cuisine, and it's not trying to be. It's the taste of home, of decades-old family gatherings where love was measured in casserole dishes and second helpings. Some recipes never really go out of style. They just wait patiently in the pantry, ready to remind us why they mattered in the first place. Creamed onions in white sauce. Once upon a time, no Thanksgiving table was truly complete without a bowl of creamed onions. Small, pearly white globes swimming in a velvety sauce that clung to them like satin. It was a side dish that whispered, rather than shouted, its presence. Simple, understated, and deeply comforting. Creamed onions in white sauce embodied everything elegant about old-fashioned holiday cooking: thrift, care, and the belief that even the humblest vegetables deserve to be treated with grace. The recipe itself was modest. Blanched pearl onions folded into a classic white sauce, made from butter, flour, milk, and just a hint of nutmeg or black pepper. Some cooks added a splash of cream for richness or a sprinkle of parsley for color, but the essence remained unchanged. The sauce was smooth and buttery, the onions tender but still holding their shape, each bite offering a quiet sweetness that balanced the saltier dishes on the plate. It was the kind of food that didn't need to impress, it simply comforted. Creamed onions were especially beloved in early to mid-20th century households, when they symbolized care and abundance. Peeling all those tiny onions was a labor of love, one that patient grandmothers often undertook the night before Thanksgiving. The dish bridged English and New England culinary traditions, echoing a time when cream sauces were a mark of refinement and holidays called for gentleness on the palate. As tastes shifted toward bolder flavors and faster recipes, creamed onions quietly vanished from the menu. They didn't have the bright colors or the crunch of newer sides. They were too mild, too polite. Yet, there's something profoundly comforting about their simplicity, a reminder that not every dish needs to dazzle. Some are meant to soothe. Bringing them back today feels almost radical in its simplicity. With just a few ingredients, you can recreate a taste of the past. Sweet onions bathed in cream, melting together in quiet perfection. It's a dish that doesn't demand attention. It earns affection, one gentle spoonful at a time. Savory bread pudding. Before bread puddings were sweet and drenched in caramel, they were savory. A clever way to stretch stale loaves into something deeply satisfying. Savory bread pudding was a fixture on Grandma's holiday table, a dish that sat somewhere between stuffing and casserole, creamy on the inside with a crisp golden top. It was proof of an old kitchen truth. Frugality and flavor could live side by side. This was a dish born from resourcefulness. Cooks tore leftover bread into cubes, then soaked them in a mixture of milk, eggs, butter, and broth until the texture turned soft and custardy. Into this base went whatever the pantry offered: sautéed onions, celery, herbs, bits of ham or a handful of cheese. Sometimes it leaned rustic and earthy, with sage and mushrooms, other times elegant with thyme and leeks. Baked until puffed and lightly browned, it emerged from the oven smelling like comfort itself, ready to take its place beside the turkey and gravy boat. Savory bread pudding was particularly popular through the 1930s and 40s, when waste was unthinkable and every ingredient earned its keep. During wartime rationing, families relied on recipes like this to make the most of what they had, turning simple staples into something worthy of company. It was a dish of quiet invention, no two versions alike, but all equally nourishing. Over time, the recipe was eclipsed by boxed stuffing mixes and more predictable casseroles, but its charm remains timeless. It's endlessly adaptable and forgiving, the kind of dish that welcomes improvisation and still feels homemade no matter how you tweak it. Bring it back to the Thanksgiving table, and it bridges generations. The thrift of the past meeting the creativity of today. Each bite tells a story of resilience and warmth, of kitchens where nothing went to waste and everything had purpose. Savory bread pudding isn't just a forgotten side. It's a reminder that the best comfort foods are often the simplest, baked slowly with love and a little imagination. Mashed turnips with butter. Before mashed potatoes claimed their permanent place at the Thanksgiving table, there was another humble star, mashed turnips with butter. Pale gold and faintly sweet, they offered a flavor that was earthy, peppery, and just a bit tangy, something that spoke of simpler times and hardy roots pulled fresh from the fall soil. This dish was a staple for generations who knew that comfort didn't need to come from abundance, only care. Turnips were once the everyday vegetable of the American kitchen, especially in rural homes. They were inexpensive, easy to store through the winter, and available long after other produce had vanished from the garden. Boiled until tender, then mashed with generous pats of butter, cream, and salt, they transformed from firm and bitter to smooth and mellow, their flavor deepening as the butter melted in. Some cooks added a pinch of sugar to soften the sharpness, while others folded in a touch of black pepper or nutmeg to round out the taste. The result was a dish that was comforting in a quieter, more rustic way than potatoes. A little old-fashioned, perhaps, but deeply satisfying. On holiday tables, mashed turnips were often served alongside roast meats and gravies, their subtle flavor balancing the richness of everything else. For families of the early 20th century, this wasn't a side dish born from nostalgia. It was tradition, a reflection of the farmstead rhythms that shaped seasonal cooking. As tastes modernized and root vegetables fell out of favor, mashed turnips became a relic of grandma food, something rarely seen outside vintage cookbooks. But one spoonful reminds you why they endured for so long. Their warmth, their simplicity, their unpretentious honesty. Bring them back, and you'll rediscover the beauty of plain food done well, a humble mash elevated by butter and memory. It's a taste that feels like home, reminding us that before the era of casseroles and shortcuts, Thanksgiving was built on dishes that spoke the language of the land itself. Ambrosia fruit salad. Once upon a time, no Thanksgiving, or any church supper for that matter, felt complete without a bowl of ambrosia fruit salad glistening on the table. A mixture of fruit, coconut, and cream. It was the sunny, tropical note on a cold November day, a little taste of paradise in a sea of gravy and casseroles. To the mid-century home cook, ambrosia wasn't just dessert masquerading as a side dish. It was a symbol of abundance, color, and joy. The classic version was simple but adaptable. Canned mandarin oranges, pineapple chunks, and maraschino cherries formed the base, their syrupy sweetness cut by shredded coconut and sometimes miniature marshmallows. Then came the creamy element, either whipped cream, sour cream, or the beloved Cool Whip, depending on the decade and the cook's personality. Some grandmothers swore by a handful of pecans for crunch. Others insisted on banana slices or grapes for freshness. However it was made, ambrosia was a cheerful pastel dream that seemed to brighten any spread. The dish itself dates back to the late 19th century, when citrus fruits were still a luxury in much of the country. Ambrosia, named after the food of the gods, was meant to impress, a showcase of exotic ingredients made accessible through modern shipping and canning. By the 1950s and 60s, it had become a mainstay of Southern and Midwestern family gatherings, adored for its ease, its beauty, and its unmistakable nostalgia. Eventually, ambrosia fruit salad lost its place at the grown-up table, replaced by sleeker, more sophisticated desserts. But to those who remember it, ambrosia is more than a recipe. It's a memory. The glossy fruit, the sweet cream, the clink of the serving spoon in Grandma's glass bowl, all of it speaks of holidays filled with laughter and second helpings. Reviving ambrosia today isn't about irony or kitsch. It's about celebration. It's a reminder that sometimes the simplest pleasures are the sweetest ones. A spoonful of fruit, a cloud of cream, and the warmth of family gathered close. Jell-O salad with cottage cheese. There was a time when no holiday table looked complete without something jiggling in the center. And for many families, that something was Jell-O salad with cottage cheese. It was bright, pastel, and unapologetically cheerful. The kind of dish that made kids grin and adults secretly go back for seconds. To modern eyes, it might seem odd, gelatin and dairy in the same bowl. But to mid-century home cooks, it was a culinary innovation, cool, creamy, and delightfully unpredictable. The beauty of the Jell-O salad lay in its endless variations. Lime Jell-O was the classic base, giving the dish its signature green glow, though orange, lemon, or strawberry versions made frequent appearances. Into the dissolved gelatin went crushed pineapple, chopped pecans, and a generous scoop of creamy cottage cheese. Some recipes folded in whipped cream or mayonnaise to make it extra fluffy, while others relied on the natural tang of the curds to balance the sweetness. Once chilled in a decorative mold, it emerged as a shimmering dome of pastel nostalgia, part salad, part dessert, entirely 1950s charm. For many grandmothers, this salad wasn't just a recipe, it was pride on a platter. It represented thrift, creativity, and a touch of glamour. Jell-O salads were the jewels of the buffet line, their glossy surfaces catching the light, and their flavors offering a sweet reprieve between bites of turkey and gravy. Cottage cheese made it feel wholesome, even protein-packed, fitting neatly into the post-war fascination with nutrition and modern convenience. By the 1980s, the Jell-O salad had fallen out of fashion, dismissed as kitschy or overly processed. But nostalgia has a way of reviving even the most curious culinary inventions. Today, a bite of lime green Jell-O with creamy curds is more than a novelty. It's a memory of a time when cooking was both inventive and optimistic. Bringing it back to the Thanksgiving table isn't about irony, it's about celebration. It's a reminder that food once shimmered, wobbled, and made people smile. And that there's still a little magic in dishes that dare to be both strange and sweet. Oyster stuffing. Before boxed mixes and store-bought breadcrumbs became the norm, oyster stuffing was the pride of the Thanksgiving table. A rich, savory tradition that tied land and sea together in one luxurious bite. It was a dish that spoke of coastal abundance and old-fashioned indulgence. A reminder that once upon a time, oysters weren't a delicacy reserved for special occasions, but a humble ingredient found in everyday kitchens. The recipe itself was simple yet deeply flavorful. Fresh or canned oysters were chopped and folded into a base of cubed bread, sautéed onions, celery, butter, and herbs like sage or thyme. A splash of the briny oyster liquor added depth, while eggs and a bit of broth bound everything together. Baked until golden and fragrant, the stuffing emerged from the oven with crispy edges and a soft, almost custardy center, a balance of textures that felt both rustic and elegant. Some families baked it inside the turkey, others preferred it in its own pan, where the top could brown and crisp to perfection. Oyster stuffing has deep roots in early American cooking, dating back to the 18th century when oysters were cheap and plentiful along the East Coast. They were used to stretch bread and meat dishes, adding moisture and umami long before anyone used that word. By the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the dish had become a holiday standard, appearing in cookbooks and family menus across New England and the Midwest alike. As oysters grew more expensive and palates shifted towards simpler flavors, the dish gradually disappeared from most Thanksgiving spreads. Yet it remains one of the great forgotten classics, an echo of a time when holiday meals celebrated both resourcefulness and richness. To taste oyster stuffing today is to experience a bit of culinary history, buttery, aromatic, and just briny enough to feel special. It's a dish that deserves to be revived, not just for its flavor, but for the sense of tradition it carries, linking us to generations who believed that even the simplest ingredients could feel like a feast. Glazed carrots with brown sugar. There's something timeless about a bowl of glossy, tender carrots glistening under a coat of brown sugar and butter. Once a mainstay of holiday dinners and Sunday roasts alike, glazed carrots with brown sugar were the quiet achievers of the Thanksgiving table, humble, colorful, and gently sweet without demanding attention. They were the kind of side dish that didn't need reinvention because it already did everything right. It added warmth, color, and just enough sweetness to make you go back for another spoonful. The method was simple and elegant. Fresh carrots, peeled, sliced, or cut into neat sticks, were simmered until tender, then tossed in a pan with butter, brown sugar, and a pinch of salt. As the glaze thickened, it coated each piece in a shiny amber sheen. Some cooks added a drizzle of honey or maple syrup, others a splash of orange juice or a dusting of cinnamon for extra depth. The result was always the same. Carrots transformed into candy-like jewels that felt indulgent yet wholesome. A reminder of how easily ordinary ingredients could become something special. Glazed carrots became especially popular during the mid-20th century, when home cooks sought dishes that looked elegant but required little fuss. They paired beautifully with roast meats, turkey, or ham, and were as welcome at formal dinners as they were at weeknight meals. For many grandmothers, they were a staple not because they were fancy, but because they were dependable, bright, flavorful, and always well-loved, even by the pickiest eaters. In an age of roasted vegetable medleys and complicated glazes, this simple classic has quietly slipped into the background. But perhaps it's time to bring it back. There's a kind of nostalgia in those caramelized edges, the buttery sweetness that hovers between savory and dessert. Glazed carrots with brown sugar don't just complement a meal, they complete it. They remind us that true comfort cooking doesn't need reinvention, only remembrance. One golden forkful at a time. Harvard beets. Long before roasted vegetables and balsamic reductions took over the holiday table, there was Harvard beets, a dish so vibrantly red it looked almost ceremonial. Glossy, sweet, and tangy all at once, these beets were a proud relic of old New England cooking, where thrift met refinement and color mattered as much as flavor. For generations of grandmothers, Harvard beets were the jewel-toned side dish that brought a touch of brightness and a whisper of vinegar to balance the heavy richness of turkey and gravy. The beauty of the recipe lay in its simplicity. Sliced or diced beets, often home-cooked or canned, were simmered in a syrupy glaze of sugar, vinegar, butter, and cornstarch until the sauce thickened into a smooth, ruby coating. The balance of sweet and tart was deliberate, cutting through the fattier flavors of a holiday meal and keeping the palate refreshed. Some cooks added a squeeze of orange juice or a spoonful of mustard for complexity, while others swore by a pinch of cloves to deepen the aroma. No matter the variation, the result was unmistakable. Tender beets glistening in a glossy, garnet-red sauce that seemed to catch the candlelight just so. The origins of Harvard beets are hazy, but most food historians trace them to the 19th century, when vinegar-based beet recipes were popular in New England. The Harvard name may have been borrowed from the crimson hue associated with the university, or simply added for a touch of Yankee flair. By the early 20th century, the dish was a household favorite, appearing in countless community cookbooks and dinner spreads. Over time, as fresh salads and roasted vegetables became the norm, Harvard beets quietly slipped out of rotation. Yet they remain one of the most distinctive side dishes of the American table, a perfect marriage of sweet, sour, and nostalgia. Bring them back and you'll find they still do exactly what they always did best: brighten a plate, balance a meal, and remind us that even the simplest vegetables can shine like jewels in Grandma's kitchen. Waldorf salad. Before salads meant greens and vinaigrettes, there was the Waldorf, a crisp, creamy, and slightly glamorous concoction that managed to feel both old money and homey at the same time. Born in the late 19th century at New York's Waldorf Hotel, this salad began as a symbol of sophistication. But by mid-century, it had found its way into everyday kitchens, where grandmothers recreated it not with silver serving bowls, but with Pyrex and pride. On Thanksgiving tables, it offered something rare: freshness and crunch amid the sea of casseroles and gravies. The classic recipe was as simple as it was elegant: chopped apples, celery, and walnuts bound together with mayonnaise. Some families added grapes or raisins for sweetness. Others folded in whipped cream or sour cream for a silkier texture. A squeeze of lemon kept the apples bright, while the walnuts added a satisfying bite. It was cool, crisp, and just rich enough to feel like a treat without overwhelming the palate. In an era of heavy holiday fare, Waldorf salad provided a refreshing pause, a light, crunchy intermission between spoonfuls of stuffing and slices of turkey. By the 1950s and 60s, the Waldorf had become a cultural chameleon. It appeared at luncheons, potlucks, and holiday feasts alike, evolving with each generation's tastes. Some cooks swapped the mayo for Miracle Whip. Others introduced mini marshmallows or diced pineapple to keep things festive. However it was dressed up, it retained its essential charm: simple ingredients, perfectly balanced. As modern salads grew more elaborate, the humble Waldorf lost its spotlight, often dismissed as retro. But that's precisely what makes it worth reviving. It's refreshing, quick to make, and carries with it a quiet sense of nostalgia, an echo of dining rooms filled with laughter, linen napkins, and glass serving dishes. Bring back the Waldorf this Thanksgiving, and you'll see why it once held such staying power. With every bite of crisp apple, tender celery, and creamy dressing, it delivers exactly what holiday food should: comfort, balance, and a taste of history that never truly goes out of style. Cornbread dressing with giblets. Few dishes capture the spirit of a Southern Thanksgiving like cornbread dressing with giblets, a recipe that feels both humble and regal, born from thrift but rich in flavor. For generations, it's been the true heart of the holiday table, often more cherished than the turkey itself. Every grandmother had her own version scribbled on a stained index card, or passed down by memory alone, because this was not a dish you learned from a cookbook. It was taught by watching, tasting, and trusting your hands. At its core, cornbread dressing is a simple marriage of ingredients: crumbled cornbread mixed with sautéed onions, celery, and a hearty broth enriched with the finely chopped giblets from the turkey. Those much maligned bits of liver, heart, and gizzard that lend unmatched depth of flavor. Beaten eggs held the mixture together, while sage, black pepper, and a touch of poultry seasoning gave it the unmistakable scent of home. Baked until the edges crisped and the center stayed moist, it came out of the oven golden and steaming, the kind of dish that made the kitchen smell like Thanksgiving itself. The tradition of using giblets was born from practicality. Nothing went to waste in old kitchens, and every part of the bird found its purpose. The giblet broth, rich and savory, soaked into the cornbread crumbs, turning them soft and custardy without ever becoming soggy. Some cooks added bits of hard-boiled egg, others a handful of chopped pecans, but the soul of the dish never changed. It was hearty, seasoned with care, and made to feed a crowd. Over the years, box stuffing mixes and instant versions have edged this dish off many tables, but cornbread dressing with giblets remains a culinary heirloom, one worth preserving. Its flavor tells a story of family, resourcefulness, and gratitude, of kitchens where nothing was wasted and everything was made with love. Bring it back and you'll remember why dressing isn't just a side dish. It's the very soul of Thanksgiving, baked golden and shared by everyone gathered around the table. Prune whip. Once a darling of mid-century dessert tables, prune whip was the kind of sweet you might remember seeing in an old church cookbook or a grandmother's handwritten recipe box. Light, airy, and far more elegant than its name suggests. It was a dessert that whispered rather than shouted, a cloud of sweetness built from pantry staples and patience. In an era before instant pudding and boxed cake mixes, prune whip represented the art of making something luxurious out of very little. The magic began with stewed prunes, cooked until tender and then pureed into a glossy, deep purple paste. To this, home cooks added sugar, a squeeze of lemon juice, and sometimes a hint of vanilla or cinnamon for warmth. But the true transformation came from the egg whites, whipped until stiff peaks formed and then gently folded into the prune mixture, creating a light mousse-like texture. Once chilled, the dessert set into a delicate, airy whip that was both comforting and refined. Some grandmothers spooned it into sherbet glasses for special occasions, while others layered it with whipped cream or sponge cake for a touch of grandeur. Prune whip's appeal wasn't just its taste, it was its wholesomeness. In the early to mid-20th century, prunes were celebrated as both nourishing and practical, rich in vitamins and fiber, the sort of good-for-you indulgence that mothers approved of and children tolerated with surprising enthusiasm. It was a dessert that bridged generations, offering sweetness without excess and effort without extravagance. As dessert trends shifted toward convenience and decadence, prune whip quietly disappeared from the culinary spotlight. But in its simplicity lies its charm. The texture is light as air. The flavor gently fruity with a whisper of nostalgia. To make it today is to rediscover a forgotten kind of elegance, one that doesn't rely on frosting or flash. It's the taste of Sunday suppers and old cookbooks, of aproned hands and kitchen whisks. Prune whip may be humble, but one spoonful reminds you there's beauty in the quiet desserts that time almost forgot. Baked apples with cinnamon. Before pies and cobblers stole the spotlight, baked apples with cinnamon were the go-to autumn dessert. A dish that needed no crust, no complicated steps, just time, warmth, and a little patience. Often without a written note because it relied on intuition rather than precision. The fragrance alone, apples mingling with butter, brown sugar, and spice, was enough to make a house feel like home. The preparation was simple, almost meditative. Firm apples, usually Rome, Winesap, or Granny Smith, were cored and placed in a baking dish, then filled with a mixture of butter, sugar, and cinnamon. Some cooks tucked in raisins or chopped nuts for texture. Others drizzled a touch of molasses or maple syrup over the tops before baking. A bit of water or apple cider in the pan created steam that softened the fruit until it yielded easily to a spoon, while the filling melted into a caramel-like sauce that pooled at the bottom. Baked apples weren't just dessert. They were a bridge between the practical and the poetic. In the days when nothing went to waste, bruised or leftover apples could be transformed into something comforting and fragrant. Served warm with cream, whipped topping, or even a scoop of ice cream, they managed to feel both rustic and indulgent. On Thanksgiving tables of the early 20th century, they often appeared as a lighter alternative to pie, offering sweetness without the heaviness of pastry. Over time, as baking grew more elaborate and desserts more decadent, the humble baked apple faded from the feast. But it remains one of those rare recipes that feels timeless the moment you taste it. Simple, honest, and full of warmth. Bring them back and you'll understand why they never truly went out of style. Each spoonful carries the cozy essence of autumn itself, the tang of fruit, the sweetness of sugar, and the gentle spice of cinnamon, a trio that has been comforting kitchens for centuries. Creamed spinach gratin. Before spinach became synonymous with salads and smoothies, it had a far cozier home, bubbling away under a blanket of cream and breadcrumbs in Grandma's oven. Creamed spinach gratin was the green side dish that made even the most skeptical eaters fall in love with their vegetables. Velvety, savory, and crowned with a golden crust, it felt both comforting and a little bit fancy. A dish worthy of Thanksgiving, but humble enough for a weeknight supper. The beauty of creamed spinach gratin was in its simplicity. Fresh or frozen spinach was cooked down until tender, then stirred into a silky bechamel sauce made from butter, flour, milk, and sometimes a splash of cream. A touch of nutmeg added warmth, while a scattering of cheese, usually Parmesan, Swiss, or cheddar, brought depth and richness. The mixture was poured into a buttered casserole dish, topped with breadcrumbs or crushed crackers, and baked until the top turned crisp and golden while the inside stayed luxuriously creamy. It was a dish that perfectly captured the mid-century balance of comfort and class. Served alongside roast meats or turkey, creamed spinach gratin offered a soothing counterpoint to the stronger flavors of the meal. Grandmothers loved it because it was both nourishing and elegant, a way to make greens appealing to children and guests alike. And unlike many vegetable sides, it never felt like an afterthought. It had presence, substance, and that irresistible aroma of butter and toasted crumbs. As cooking trends shifted toward lighter, fresher preparations, creamed spinach gratin slowly disappeared from the Thanksgiving spread, replaced by flashier vegetable dishes. But one bite of its creamy, savory richness is enough to remember why it once held such a beloved spot on the table. Bringing it back today feels like a return to the best kind of comfort cooking. Simple, hearty, and quietly sophisticated. Each spoonful tastes like home. Proof that even the most unassuming greens can become something extraordinary with a little cream, a bit of cheese, and a lot of love. Tomato aspic. Tomato aspic might be one of the most polarizing dishes ever to grace the Thanksgiving table. A shimmering, ruby red mold that looked like dessert but tasted like a salad. Yet for generations of home cooks, this savory gelatin dish was the height of mid-century sophistication. It was cool, colorful, and proudly displayed in cut glass molds or ring-shaped dishes, often surrounded by lettuce leaves or dollops of mayonnaise. Grandma didn't see it as odd, she saw it as elegant. The base was simple but clever. Tomato juice or V8 blended with unflavored gelatin, then seasoned with vinegar, lemon juice, celery salt, Worcestershire sauce, and a touch of sugar to balance the acidity. Some versions added finely chopped celery, onions, or green peppers for texture. Once chilled, it set into a firm, glossy mold that could hold its own among the turkey, dressing, and cranberry sauce. Served cold and sliced, tomato aspic offered a tart, refreshing contrast to the rich foods of the holiday spread. In the 1950s and 60s, gelatin-based dishes were everywhere, symbols of modern efficiency and hostess flair. Tomato aspic, in particular, reflected the era's fascination with molded salads, where presentation mattered just as much as flavor. The clear, sculpted form looked impressive without being expensive, and the ingredients were pantry staples. For Southern cooks especially, aspic was a tradition, a cool, tangy side that paired perfectly with ham, roast beef, or poultry. As food fashions changed and gelatin salads fell out of favor, tomato aspic became one of those you-had-to-be-there recipes. Younger generations often regarded it with suspicion. Part salad, part science experiment. But those who grew up with it remember its unique charm, the balance of savory and sweet, the bright flavor that cut through holiday heaviness, and the pride of serving something beautifully molded. Today, reviving tomato aspic feels like a nod to a bolder culinary era, one unafraid of a little experimentation and a lot of gelatin. It's retro, yes, but also refreshing in its simplicity. A wobbly slice of nostalgia gleaming on the plate, reminding us that even the quirkiest dishes once had their moment to shine. Sweet potato casserole with marshmallows. Few dishes capture the spirit of vintage Thanksgiving quite like sweet potato casserole topped with toasted marshmallows. A combination so strange it shouldn't work, yet somehow does. This sugary, golden-topped side dish walked the line between vegetable and dessert, a comforting mashup of earthy sweetness and gooey indulgence that turned every bite into a small holiday miracle. For many families, it wasn't Thanksgiving until Grandma's sweet potato casserole came out of the oven, bubbling and fragrant. The roots of this dish stretch back to the early 20th century, when marshmallow manufacturers were looking for creative ways to promote their product. A 1917 recipe pamphlet suggested pairing marshmallows with mashed sweet potatoes, and home cooks embraced it wholeheartedly. Over the decades, the dish evolved. Some added brown sugar, butter, and cream to the potatoes for richness. Others folded in crushed pineapple or orange zest for brightness. But the essential feature remained the same. That layer of marshmallows puffed and caramelized under the broiler, transforming into a sweet, crackly crust. It wasn't just about taste, it was about spectacle. The casserole arrived at the table piping hot, the marshmallows golden and slightly sticky, drawing gasps from children and adults alike. It was dessert disguised as a side dish, a little rebellion against the rules of dinner order. And while some modern cooks have traded the marshmallows for pecan streusel or maple glaze, the classic version remains unmatched for pure nostalgia. What made it special was its balance of contrasts, the silky mashed potatoes against the airy sweetness of the topping, the homey aroma of cinnamon and nutmeg mingling with caramelized sugar. It wasn't refined, but it was joyful, festive, and utterly American. Bringing back sweet potato casserole with marshmallows isn't just reviving a dish, it's reviving a tradition of playful, comforting abundance. One spoonful, and you're instantly transported back to Grandma's kitchen, where the oven door fogged with steam, the air smelled like butter and sugar, and the holidays tasted unapologetically sweet. Broccoli rice casserole. Before kale chips and quinoa bowls, there was broccoli rice casserole, the ultimate comfort dish that turned humble pantry staples into something warm, cheesy, and deeply satisfying. It wasn't fancy, but that was exactly the point. This was the kind of casserole that showed up on holiday tables and church potlucks alike, steaming and golden under its crispy crust, feeding a crowd without fuss or frills. For many families, it was Grandma's way of sneaking vegetables onto the plate and making sure everyone went back for seconds. The recipe was a product of the mid-20th century casserole boom, when convenience foods were celebrated and creativity meant making magic out of what you had in the pantry. Cooked rice, chopped broccoli, cream of mushroom soup, and a generous helping of shredded cheese were the foundations of the dish. Some cooks added onions or garlic for depth. Others folded in mayonnaise, sour cream, or even a dash of curry powder for a little kick. Once baked, it emerged bubbling and aromatic, the cheese forming a golden, irresistible crust that sealed in all the creamy goodness beneath. What made broccoli rice casserole a Thanksgiving staple was its reliability. It paired beautifully with roasted turkey, glazed ham, or even meatloaf, balancing the meal with its mild, comforting flavor. It was also affordable and forgiving, perfect for busy cooks feeding large families. And like all good casseroles, it aged well. Leftovers the next day were somehow even better, the flavors melding together overnight. Though it's fallen out of fashion in favor of fresher, lighter sides, broccoli rice casserole remains a nostalgic treasure. Its charm lies in its simplicity. No need for artisan cheese or specialty ingredients, just a handful of basics baked with love. Bringing it back means more than reviving a dish. It's rekindling a time when from scratch and from the can happily coexisted, when dinner was served in a Pyrex dish, and when comfort food truly meant comfort. One spoonful, and you'll remember why Grandma's casseroles were never just sides. They were the heart of the meal. Pear salad with mayo and cherries. It sounds improbable to modern ears, pear halves topped with a dollop of mayonnaise, a sprinkle of shredded cheese, and a maraschino cherry. But in Grandma's kitchen, pear salad was a thing of beauty. Sweet, creamy, and proudly displayed on a bed of crisp iceberg lettuce, it was a Southern classic that once held court at luncheons, potlucks, and, of course, Thanksgiving tables. This was a dish that celebrated both presentation and practicality. A few pantry staples arranged to look special, with flavors that were surprisingly balanced beneath their odd-sounding combination. The foundation was canned pear halves, chilled and glistening, placed neatly on lettuce leaves. Each was crowned with a spoonful of mayonnaise, or sometimes Miracle Whip for extra tang, then dusted with grated cheddar cheese and topped with a single cherry. Some cooks added crushed nuts for crunch, while others swapped pears for peaches or pineapple when supplies ran low. Served cold, the result was a delightful mix of sweet fruit, creamy dressing, and salty cheese. A flavor profile that somehow worked in its own quirky way. Pear salad spoke to an era when presentation mattered. Mid-century homemakers took pride in assembling these little edible sculptures, often on matching salad plates or crystal dishes. The colors alone, pale gold pears, red cherries, white mayo, and yellow cheese, looked festive and fun. It was light yet rich, refreshing yet indulgent, a sweet break from heavier holiday dishes. As tastes evolved and salads became greener and more sophisticated, pear salad slipped quietly out of rotation. To younger generations, it seemed like a relic of church supper cuisine. But for those who remember, it carries the charm of a bygone era, a dish that was simple, cheerful, and always made with care. Bringing it back isn't about irony or retro kitsch. It's about remembering the creativity of cooks who made something memorable from the ordinary. One bite of that creamy sweet mix, and suddenly, you understand why Grandma kept making it year after year. It was pure, unpretentious joy on a plate. Celery and olive relish tray. Before charcuterie boards took over the party scene, the celery and olive relish tray was the undisputed star of every holiday spread. It wasn't fancy or expensive, but it had class. A crisp, colorful arrangement of pickles, olives, and raw vegetables served before the main meal. Grandma's relish tray was more than a side dish. It was a signal that Thanksgiving had officially begun. Guests would nibble and chat while the turkey roasted, balancing a tiny plate of olives and celery sticks with practiced grace. The classic version was simple yet thoughtful. Celery stalks were trimmed and stuffed with cream cheese or pimento spread, then chilled until cold and crunchy. A variety of olives, green, black, sometimes even stuffed with almonds or anchovies, offered briny contrast. Pickles of all kinds joined the mix. Dill spears, sweet gherkins, pickled beets, even pearl onions. Some trays included radishes carved into little flowers or carrot sticks for color, all neatly arranged on Grandma's best glass serving dish or Lazy Susan. It wasn't just about flavor, it was about hospitality. The relish tray represented care and tradition, a way to welcome guests with something to snack on while keeping them out of the kitchen. It was practical, yes, but also elegant in its simplicity. Every bite offered a contrast to the rich, heavy foods to come. Crisp, salty, tangy, and refreshing. By the 1980s, the relish tray began to disappear, replaced by cheese platters and hors d'oeuvres with more flair. But its charm hasn't faded. It's still one of the most nostalgic parts of the holiday meal, a reminder of a slower, more deliberate style of entertaining. Bringing back the celery and olive relish tray today feels almost rebellious in its restraint. No fancy garnishes, no imported ingredients, just the satisfying crunch of a celery stick and the briny pop of an olive, served with the same warmth Grandma once offered her guests. It's a small tradition worth reviving, a simple, salty prelude to the feast that says, "Welcome. You're home." Mashed rutabagas. Long before mashed potatoes dominated the Thanksgiving plate, mashed rutabagas quietly held their place alongside roasted meats and gravies. Also called Swedes in some regions, rutabagas were hearty, affordable, and readily available throughout the fall and winter months. Mashed rutabagas were a staple in many early to mid-20th century kitchens, offering a subtly sweet, earthy counterpoint to richer dishes. A humble reminder that the simplest vegetables could be transformed into something comforting and satisfying. Preparation was straightforward but required patience. The rutabagas were peeled, cut into chunks and boiled until tender, then mashed with butter, cream, or milk, and a pinch of salt and pepper. Some cooks added a touch of sugar or a drizzle of maple syrup to bring out the natural sweetness, while others enriched the mash with a spoonful of cream cheese for extra creaminess. The result was a smooth, pale yellow-orange mash with a mellow flavor that paired beautifully with roasted turkey, pork, or ham. Mashed rutabagas were especially popular in rural and frugal households, where every root vegetable was valued. Unlike potatoes, rutabagas were hardy and could be stored through the winter, making them a reliable and economical choice for holiday meals. They were a dish that exemplified practicality without sacrificing taste, a side that could be humble yet still show care and attention in its preparation. Over time, mashed rutabagas faded from many Thanksgiving spreads, replaced by sweeter, more popular options like candied yams or creamy mashed potatoes. Yet those who remember them know their quiet charm, earthy, buttery, and perfectly balanced. Bringing mashed rutabagas back to the table today is a nod to tradition and simplicity. It's a way to honor the resourcefulness of past generations, while offering a taste that is both nostalgic and surprisingly sophisticated. One creamy spoonful is enough to recall the warmth of Grandma's kitchen, the seasonal rhythm of root vegetables, and the kind of comfort that comes from honest, well-prepared food. Carrot raisin salad. Before kale smoothies and exotic grain bowls, there was the humble carrot raisin salad, a sweet, crunchy staple that graced countless Thanksgiving tables in mid-20th century America. Bright orange, speckled with golden raisins, and often dressed in a creamy or tangy sauce, it was simple, refreshing, and surprisingly versatile. For many grandmothers, this salad was a way to add color and a touch of sweetness to a meal dominated by rich, heavy dishes. The recipe was straightforward. Freshly grated carrots were combined with plump raisins, then tossed with a dressing made from mayonnaise, sour cream, or a blend of the two. Some cooks added a little sugar, lemon juice, or pineapple for extra brightness, while others sprinkled in crushed nuts for texture. The result was a salad that was sweet but not cloying, creamy but not heavy, with the perfect balance of chew and crunch. Chilled before serving, it offered a cool contrast to roasted meats, stuffing, and buttery casseroles. Carrot raisin salad was particularly popular during the 1950s and 60s, when mid-century homemakers celebrated dishes that were both economical and visually appealing. It required no special equipment, used readily available ingredients, and could be prepared ahead of time, a perfect addition to the busy Thanksgiving kitchen. Its cheerful orange hue made it a favorite on the table, and children especially adored the natural sweetness of the carrots paired with the raisins. Over time, tastes shifted, and this simple salad fell out of favor, replaced by flashier, more modern side dishes. Yet there's something enduring about its flavor and texture, a reminder that elegance can be found in simplicity. Reviving carrot raisin salad today brings a touch of nostalgia to the table. Each forkful is a little reminder of past holidays, the crunch of fresh carrots, the chewy sweetness of raisins, and the cool, creamy dressing that ties it all together. It's a humble dish, but one that offers color, balance, and a quiet sense of tradition that still resonates decades later. Cranberry orange relish. Long before jellied sauces and canned cranberry cocktails dominated the holiday table, cranberry orange relish was the bright, tangy companion every Thanksgiving needed. Vibrant red cranberries blended with fresh orange zest and juice, sometimes sweetened with sugar or honey, created a flavor that was simultaneously tart, sweet, and refreshing. This was a dish that woke up the palate, cutting through the richness of turkey, stuffing, and buttery casseroles with a lively pop of citrus and berry. preparation was simple yet satisfying. Fresh cranberries were finely chopped, sometimes pulsed in a food processor for a smoother texture, then mixed with sugar and the zest and juice of oranges. Some families added chopped apples, walnuts, or a pinch of cinnamon for extra depth, while others preferred it pure and bright, a clean burst of cranberry and citrus flavor. Unlike cooked sauces, this relish was typically served raw and chilled, giving it a crisp, fresh bite that distinguished it from heavier, warm sides. Cranberry orange relish became popular in mid-20th century kitchens as cooks looked for ways to make traditional cranberry sauce more interesting. It offered a simple, homemade alternative to canned jellied versions, with the flavor that felt both modern and seasonal. Grandmothers prized it for its color, fragrance, and ease. It could be prepared days in advance, stored in the refrigerator, and brought out at the last moment for maximum freshness. Though newer trends favor roasted or spiced cranberry compotes, cranberry orange relish remains a nostalgic favorite for those who remember it. Its bright, tangy flavor is a reminder that some of the simplest ingredients, cranberries, oranges, a touch of sugar, can create a dish that's greater than the sum of its parts. Bringing it back to the table today is a small, delicious act of tradition. Each spoonful delivers a burst of autumn, a taste of citrus-kissed history, and the perfect foil to the indulgent richness of Thanksgiving fare. It's a dish that has endured for good reason, fresh, vibrant, and timeless. Old-fashioned rice pudding. Before decadent pies and creamy custards became the mainstay of holiday desserts, old-fashioned rice pudding held pride of place at the Thanksgiving table. Humble yet comforting, this dish transformed simple pantry staples, rice, milk, sugar, and eggs, into a warm, soothing treat that could be served hot or cold. It was the kind of dessert that whispered rather than shouted, a quiet finale to a rich, bustling holiday meal. The recipe was straightforward but required patience. Rice was gently simmered in milk until tender, then sweetened with sugar and flavored with vanilla, nutmeg, or cinnamon. Eggs were sometimes added to enrich the custard, giving it a silky, luscious texture. Raisins or currants often joined the mix, providing bursts of sweetness, while a dusting of cinnamon or a drizzle of cream on top added a finishing touch. The result was a creamy, comforting pudding that carried both flavor and nostalgia in every spoonful. Old-fashioned rice pudding was beloved for its simplicity and versatility. It could be prepared ahead of time, making it ideal for holiday kitchens that were always busy with roasting turkeys, baking breads, and assembling side dishes. Served in individual ramekins or a single casserole dish, it became a symbol of warmth and homeliness, a dish that transcended frugality to become a cherished family tradition. Over the decades, rice pudding gradually lost its place to more elaborate desserts, yet its charm remains timeless. There's something inherently soothing about its creamy consistency and gentle sweetness, a comfort that speaks of cozy kitchens and generations of careful, loving preparation. Reviving old-fashioned rice pudding today is more than a culinary choice. It's an invitation to experience the comforting flavors of the past. One spoonful evokes the aromas of Grandma's kitchen, the quiet anticipation of family gathered around the table, and the simple pleasure of a dessert that has endured for generations. It's proof that some classics never lose their magic, no matter how the holiday menu evolves. Scalloped corn. Before roasted vegetables and gourmet sides became the hallmark of Thanksgiving, scalloped corn was a comforting staple on many holiday tables. Sweet, tender corn baked in a creamy sauce and topped with a golden crust. It was a dish that turned a humble vegetable into something warm, indulgent, and undeniably festive. For mid-century families, scalloped corn was a way to showcase simple ingredients with elegance, bringing a touch of richness to the meal without overshadowing the turkey. The preparation was straightforward but satisfying. Fresh, frozen, or even canned corn was combined with a cream-based sauce, often made from milk, butter, flour, and sometimes cream of corn soup or grated cheese. Seasonings like salt, pepper, and a hint of sugar enhanced the natural sweetness of the kernels. The mixture was poured into a baking dish and topped with breadcrumbs, buttered crumbs, or additional cheese, then baked until bubbly and golden on top. The result was a luscious, creamy interior with a lightly crisp topping, a balance of textures that felt both homey and special. Scalloped corn was beloved for its reliability. It paired beautifully with roasted meats, stuffing, and potatoes, providing a comforting, subtly sweet contrast to richer flavors. It was easy to prepare in advance, making it a practical choice for busy cooks orchestrating the holiday feast. For children and adults alike, the dish was approachable, creamy, and endlessly satisfying. One of those sides that could quietly steal the spotlight. Though it has largely fallen out of favor today, replaced by flashier vegetable dishes, scalloped corn remains a nostalgic classic. Its creamy, comforting flavor and golden top evoke memories of bustling kitchens, holiday warmth, and family traditions passed down through generations. Bringing it back to the Thanksgiving table is a reminder that simple ingredients, when treated with care, can become extraordinary. Scalloped corn is more than a side dish. It's a taste of home, a touch of nostalgia, and a testament to the comforting, unpretentious flavors that once defined the holiday meal. Cheese soufflé. Before every Thanksgiving table was dominated by heavy casseroles and creamy sides, the cheese soufflé held a place of quiet elegance. Light, airy, and slightly golden on top, it was a dish that demanded attention in both technique and presentation, offering a touch of sophistication to a holiday feast. For grandmothers of the mid-20th century, a well-executed cheese soufflé was both a point of pride and a sure way to impress guests. The preparation required patience and care. A creamy base of bechamel sauce was enriched with grated cheese, commonly sharp cheddar, Gruyere, or Swiss, and seasoned with a pinch of nutmeg, salt, and pepper. Egg yolks were folded into the mixture, while stiffly beaten egg whites were gently incorporated, giving the soufflé its signature lift. The dish was then baked until puffed and golden, with the edges crisping slightly while the interior remained soft, delicate, and custardy. Served immediately, it showcased a perfect balance of richness and lightness. Cheese soufflés were particularly popular from the 1940s through the 1960s, a time when home cooks sought dishes that were impressive but achievable with skill rather than extravagant ingredients. It was a dish that symbolized refinement, a sophisticated vegetable or side that could sit alongside turkey, ham, and other traditional fare. The soufflé's rise in the oven became a moment of anticipation, a visual delight that matched its delicate flavor. As time went on, casseroles and easier-to-make baked sides overshadowed this elegant classic, and cheese soufflé gradually disappeared from holiday menus. Yet those who remember it recall its airy texture, savory depth, and the pride it inspired in the cook. Reviving cheese soufflé today is more than a nod to culinary history. It's a reminder that Thanksgiving can include both comfort and finesse. Each spoonful delivers creamy, cheesy richness, perfectly balanced by the light, cloud-like texture. A dish that elevates the meal while honoring the traditions of kitchens past. Candied yams with pecans. Few side dishes embody the warmth and indulgence of a classic Thanksgiving like candied yams with pecans. Sweet, tender yam slices or chunks are baked in a luscious syrup of brown sugar, butter, and a hint of cinnamon, then finished with a sprinkling of toasted pecans that add crunch and depth. It's a dish that feels celebratory, a little decadent, and utterly comforting, a perfect foil to savory turkey and rich gravies. The preparation is simple but transformative. Yams are peeled, sliced, and arranged in a buttered baking dish, then coated with a mixture of brown sugar, melted butter, and often a touch of vanilla or orange juice to enhance the natural sweetness. As they bake, the sugar caramelizes, forming a sticky, fragrant glaze that clings to each tender piece. A handful of chopped pecans scattered on top before the final minutes of baking adds texture and a nutty richness that balances the sweetness. The aroma alone, warm, spicy, and nutty, signals that the holiday feast is truly underway. Candied yams with pecans rose to popularity in the mid-20th century when home cooks sought ways to elevate humble root vegetables. They combined practicality with indulgence. Yams were inexpensive and widely available, yet when prepared this way, they felt luxurious. This dish was a staple in Southern kitchens, but it also spread nationwide, becoming synonymous with festive, family-centered meals. Over time, variations emerged. Some cooks added marshmallows for extra sweetness, while others preferred a purer version, letting the glaze and pecans speak for themselves. Regardless of tweaks, the essence remained the same: a sweet, buttery, comforting side that complemented rather than competed with the rest of the table. Bringing candied yams with pecans back to the Thanksgiving table is a celebration of flavor and tradition. Each tender, caramelized bite reminds us why this simple combination of sweet potato, sugar, butter, and nuts has endured for generations. It's comforting, festive, and irresistibly delicious. These forgotten Thanksgiving side dishes may have slipped off the table over the years, but their flavors and memories are worth bringing back. From creamy casseroles to sweet, nostalgic treats, Grandma's recipes remind us of a time when every dish was made with care. If you enjoyed this trip down culinary memory lane, be sure to like and share this video and subscribe for more deliciously nostalgic recipes. Let's bring these classic sides back to our holiday tables.